Redditors who grew up poor. Besides practical money-saving measures, what were the unwritten social expectations of your world growing up? You never brought the field trip permission slips home because you knew better than to make your mom feel guilty she couldn't pay the $5.20 fee to let you go. I did this, too. Staying behind in the library while everyone else went honestly was perfectly fine with me. That's one thing my dad wouldn't let us miss out on. Even during the recession, he got upset I hadn't told him about a field trip. He was willing to shell out money for my senior trip to Disney World, but I refused. I knew about our situation by then. Oh gosh. This made me remember a kindergarten field trip to the pumpkin patch. I was an only child to a single mom, and she worked 2 jobs just to make ends meet. There was no such thing as buying something that wasn't essential, so buying a pumpkin to carve for Halloween just didn't happen. I'm assuming the pumpkin patch was a free friend trip, or else I was too young to see my mom scrape money together so I could go, but by then I already had an understanding of things cost money that we can't afford. I asked over and over if we had to buy the pumpkin and that I didn't bring any money, but our teacher assured all of us that we got to keep whichever one we picked out, and the only rule was we had to carry it back to the bus on our own. I was a tiny kid for my age and searched for the biggest pumpkin I could find, since I'd never have the chance at that again. I carried that damn pumpkin myself, even though it was almost as big as me. Haha, I remember the teacher herself trying to carry it for me because she felt bad, but I was not letting that freebie get away. Going to the doctor isn't an option until your fever is sustained at 104, a bone is broken, or the tooth rotted and won't fall out on its own. I am in my late 30s with full insurance and still have a hang-up about going for medical care. I have 2 gaps to this day from teeth that were removed because you could get rotted teeth removed at the free health center. If you had tooth problems, you waited until the tooth rotted out and had it removed. It was such a shock to me when I found out people have full-on relationships with their physicians and dentists because they saw them regularly all their childhood. I can tell my teeth have shifted over the years from not being able to get replacement teeth or bridges. This is the saddest shit, to not even be able to have preventative care. Even people with very good incomes have hang-ups about going for medical care. Our healthcare system is expensive as hell, assuming American. I fell on my bike and it looked like Freddy ripped me open on my ribs. The ensuing infection turned into a fever. Had to ride it out in the middle of August with no AC in the house. Still brings my poor mother to tears that we couldn't go to the hospital. I obviously survived, but it has made me very risk-averse as an adult. I grew up in a trailer. In 4th grade, a girl was having a birthday party and needed addresses for invitations. The next day she told me her parents and invited me because I lived in the trailer. That was a new thing I learned I was supposed to be embarrassed about. I guess just expecting to have to deal with other people's shitty parents sometimes. Edit. Thanks for all the replies and awards. I really thought this comment would get lost in the thread. I'm 31, and I still think about this all the time, and it puts me back in that small place all over again, which I know is silly. Stuff just sticks with you sometimes. Yeah, no. Actually felt good to sort of get it off my chest, though. I've read all the replies and see all of you. We can make our own little trailer park. I feel this in my gut. I grew up feeling ashamed and a lot of times not understanding why. Adults were way meaner than kids ever were. I work with kids because I want to make sure that all of them know they are worth it no matter what is going on at home. I remember other kids' parents not wanting me over because I was always hungry. I remember the same parents being upset when I started going to the gifted program with their kids too. Bitch, I'm fucking 9. You're a goddamn doctor. I just want to cut down trees with your son and split a Pop-Tart. I'm so sorry that happened. Money really can't buy class. My mother fell asleep and didn't pick me up from middle school once, and a friend of mine asked her dad to take me home, so they did. We lived out in the countryside, in a trailer which wasn't the nicest, unfortunately. From then on, her dad referred to me as trailer trash. I later found out that her dad didn't even work because he was a lazy bastard and counted on his wife for everything, who really didn't make much money either, and their house was bought and paid for by her father. I took some solace in that, but I refuse to live in a trailer now because of how awful that made me feel as a kid. It sucked to have a computer for school but not be able to afford it. Did your parents ever pull the whole they were not going to give you homework that you have to use a computer for? True, but therein my love for the library was born. Also, not being able to afford a graphing calculator when it was mandatory to have one and school wouldn't provide, so making up excuses to borrow friends' calculators on a daily basis. Oh man, I had a Windows 95 computer from 2005-2010. It was super outdated and only worked for simple word processing. It used one of those super bulky monitors 2010. One of my high school teachers noticed my situation and gifted me one of his old Mac Minis along with a thin monitor and keyboard mouse. I thought, I can't accept this. How would I explain it to my parents? He insisted that he didn't even use it and wanted me to have it. I took it home and my parents were amazed. That thing served me for a good 5 years. That thing were for a go. They are the view so fire this is my Then I started making a living and now I have my own built that Type 83 calculator. You need a $120 calculator. Need. Like I don't have a set you can rent. We weren't allowed to do any kind of extracurricular activities. So, no instruments, no joining any kind of sports or Girl Scouts or anything that required an upfront investment for uniforms or the season. No joining any kind of service or anything that required it is for photos so viewers Walmart dad once said I wasn't really in need of glasses, that I just wanted to look like all my four-eyed friends. Lol, spoiler alert. Totally needed them off-brand everything. This makes me sad for the extracurriculars. It's insane how much money you need for sports and instruments, even buying used. They were so good for kids and should be available to everyone. The extracurriculars one cuts deep. I grew up as one of the poorer kids in a pretty wealthy area, and after school everyone else would be being shuttled around to all these extracurriculars and tutoring, whereas I'd just be always only going home. Oh man, I can relate to the glasses one. My eyesight is so bad that any letter the size of my thumb was just color if it was about 10-20 feet away. But no, I couldn't possibly need glasses since no one in my dad's side of the family needs glasses. I'm pretty sure the only reason I got glasses was because it was covered by medical insurance, I think. Hide money or it will be borrowed. Also, don't get attached to anything because if it is any good it'll be sold in a yard sale. And if it has any value it will be pawned. I got the same player for 3 Christmases and birthdays in a row. Out of pawn for birthday, pawned again a month later. Out of pawn for Christmas, pawned again by March itself. I drew all over my PlayStation after getting it out of pawn for the second time. My parents had pawned it the first time after asking me if they could. They promised me all sorts of stuff, like new games and treats when they got it out. That didn't happen. The second time they pawned it, they did it while I was at school. They didn't even tell me. They just waited for me to go into my room and see that it was gone. So when I got it back that time, I grabbed a Sharpie and drew gross pictures on it and swear words. Same with all my games. I mean, I only had 7 and Tekken 3, but I didn't want to take any chances. Shh. Never tell your friends that you couldn't afford food or give them any clue about what it's like at home. My mother used to ask me if I told anyone how we live, and that's when I started questioning our situation. I once told some friends we had mushrooms growing in our house. I thought it was cool. My mom was angry and told me to never tell anyone again. I realized as I got older why she was angry. The floor of our house was rotting, thus the mushrooms, but she couldn't afford to get it fixed. She was worried it would take me away for unsafe living conditions. I was talking to a friend and she stopped me and said, "You don't tell people what goes on inside of this house. Do you? No, of course not, I lied, because if I'd said yes, she'd manipulate my father into beating my ass within an inch of my life. Because he is. She pretty much got my father to beat me whenever she wanted it. I already ate my lunch, said to so many peers and teachers over the years. Nothing wasted. Mom had a dish called McStuff stew, which was basically a little minced beef, mashed potatoes, and any leftovers from the fridge. Good menu planning. She never called it that, but one meal led to the next with last night's leftovers included. Failing that, she always had a soup on the go using bones from chicken, dried barley, and, yet again, leftovers. Thing is, they were all delicious, but that could be me just remembering her fondly. To this day, I am still confused by people who seem to hate leftovers. It comes up a lot when there's a discussion on whether it is cheaper to cook eat out. People who find it expensive to cook want to something fresh and brand new every day, whereas I'll make a lasagne, about 6 portions, freeze it, and have it whenever during the week month. It confuses me even more when that person is British, considering how popular pre-made frozen food is here, and how many people find themselves at Frankie and Benny's, probably our version of a Live Garden or Chip Chip Fridays. I understand that cooking takes time and effort, which is why it does make sense to me to throw away leftovers or not make a little bit extra. This menu planning included a night for eating leftovers every single week. I was also taught to consider other people above myself, to the point of you were cold. Put on a sweater. The electric bill is more important than your comfort. You will eat those vegetables. Those hand-me-downs from your cousins are ugly. So what? They reclothes. I won't buy you anything else. My needs and preferences were irrelevant. We weren't in deep poverty like some people I hear about. My parents owned the houses we lived in. We always had 2 cars. We weren't poverty. They were just skinflints. Don't ask for anything because you won't get it. This one is a really hard one to get over too. Like, I don't ask for anything. Ever. And it leaves the people who love me very confused. Lol. Yee. And as an adult, you were basically on your own. I remember being in awe of how much people relied on their parents in their 20s. I'd be in a bind and someone might say, "Why don't you ask your mom?" "Because I have more money than she does." Yes, my dad's motto was "those who ask don't get." It really confused me as a child and still to this day. Corollary. Learned as a kid pretty young that the only way I got what I wanted is to get it myself. Started working odd jobs at 12 to earn money to buy stuff to read. Apparently when I was younger, I was content with playing with toys in the store, then just letting it go when my parents took it away before checkout. Lol, the only 2 things I ever asked for were those cars you could ride around in the yard, a puppy. I got neither. I have a pup now as an adult, but you get your S. I'm getting that stupid toy car eventually. It is funny now seeing my leftovers as a bonus snack and not part of the next day's meal. Had some weird lunches packed for me, like cream cheese and olives in a burrito wrap. The trio of any type of bread, cheese, and olive is such a staple for me as a Turkish person. I was so confused for a sec. Why would someone call this combo weird? I can eat those together any time of the day. My father was constantly driving these two things into my head since I was old enough to remember one. Hard work will set you free too. You will not get anyone pregnant. He never meant that hard work would make you rich. He meant that if you were willing to work hard, you can always work some shit job that puts food on the table, and you will be so exhausted by day's end. You can rest. In my father's eyes, food on the table and a good night's rest was all a person really needed. The pregnancy thing was totally about shame. He grew up in the deep South with a Baptist preacher father. My father was around 6'7" in the early 1950s when his oldest brother, 15, got a girl, 18, in the church prego. The resulting shame and shunning from the community that ensued drove my father's mother to suicide. I'm sure to some degree, he blames his current life on the pregnancy that he had nothing to do with, just like my mom, but the feminist version. Hard work and an education will set you free, and for the love of money, do not get pregnant. Kids and a man will drag you down. No shame in sex, just economic hardship. She also attributed the circumstances of her life on her choices that led to an accidental pregnancy. But she accepted responsibility. It was just harder to get on solid financial ground, and we all knew it. AC was only for company. I lived in Florida and didn't know I could use the air conditioner without having someone over until I moved out of my parents' home. In the same vein, I lived in a place with bitter winters, while the thermostat at school and other public spaces was turned up past 70 degrees. My home was always around 60 degrees, sometimes dropping to the 50s. We'd offset the low temperature by sleeping with multiple blankets and wearing layers upon layers, sometimes even wearing snow pants around the house and to bed. Shit. Even our company had to sweat their asses off with us. 50 Shades of Fuck that I lived in Soulful for 28 years, was Walmart worker poor, and we cranked the air. Fuck the electric bill, I'll just cut my food budget. Soulful isn't meant to be livable without AC. I mean, it won't kill you like certain parts of Arizona, but you will wish you were dead. We were very poor growing up. You never ate the last of anything without asking first. Portions were small and limited. When I was 11, I was invited over to a then friend's house. I was floored by their house and furnishings. Very opulent compared to mine. Lunchtime came. Her mom had set the table for sandwiches. Everything laid out. 3 different breads, all sorts of meats, condiments, and fruit. At my house, lunch was a sandwich with white day-old bread with peanut butter and jelly. Sometimes we would have those Lando Frost thin sliced meats. We were only allowed 2 slices of the meat per sandwich. So, at this friend's house, I make my sandwich with 1 slice of ham because it was way thicker than the stuff at home. The mom kind of freaks out. What kind of sandwich is that? You need to put more on it, that's not enough. I explain that's what we do at home. They were horrified, ended up sending me home with a care package of food. My parents never let me go to her house again because they were embarrassed I told them we were poor. Edit. Thank you all for the awards and comments. I'm floored by all the responses and gifts I've received. I tried to personally thank every one of you. If I missed you, I'm very sorry. This has never happened to me before in all my years on Reddit. Again, thank you all very much. Thank you all very much. My parents tried the best they could. Yes, those thin slices of budding meats that had been chopped and formed and pressed and then sliced. Never could be sure what kind of meat it was, since ham, beef, chicken, and turkey all tasted the same. 3 packs for $1. I distinctly remember my dad yelling at me one morning because I put more than 1 piece of ham on my sandwich because I was just wasting it. I made my sandwiches like that until I got married and I was making one for my husband. My sister-in-law saw me and scolded me for making such a sad sandwich for him. Men need more meat than that. Lol, whatever, I've upgraded to 2 pieces now. We were very poor too, and I was always hungry. But I did the opposite thing at a friend's house in middle school. They had a huge taco spread for dinner. I took advantage of having food available to me, so I pigged out. They noticed and teased me for it, which was totally innocent, but I was mortified. I stopped eating and refused dessert. I was so embarrassed. Not eating lunch because if you either just ate breakfast or dinner's only a few hours away, you will be fine. I still have trouble remembering to eat lunch. Honestly, I do this with breakfast. I'll just sit there hunger and wait because lunchtime is only a few hours away. In the do not answer the door. Do not answer the phone. Do not answer. When the man is looking through the window, make sure you can't be seen. Do not tell anyone who knocks on the door where the parents work. This turned out to be doorstep lenders like Provident. No idea how they are still around these days. In the too. And this was a nightmare for me when I was a kid. Parents used to work and kid me always cowered in fear whenever the man came around and knocked. I still remember the way his shadow moved against the curtains. I was convinced he would get in and drag me to court because my dad owed someone money. Adult me doesn't owe anyone a damn thing, but I still get anxious when there's a knock on the door or when the phone rings and I don't recognize the number. My parents worked and were usually home about an hour or so after my elementary school got out. We lived around the corner and down the way, like a less than one, probably half a mile or so. Probably half a mile. Anyway, I had a cell phone to call when I got home. I was prepped with do not answer the door for anyone. Not your grandpa, not your uncle, not our friends, your friend's mailman, no one. Not the police or fire department unless the house is already on fire. I never opened the door for anyone. If I knew who they were, I would shout through the paned window overlooking the porch. But even then, that was rare. I usually just stayed out of sight. I also always keep my front door locked now too. And if I'm not expecting someone, I don't answer the door if I'm home alone. I also have a big dog with a big bark edit. A letter. So the window wasn't hurting anymore. Second edit. Because the question keeps coming in, I wasn't allowed to answer the door even for people we knew because you never know who child predators are until it's too late. I still tell my daughters that, especially when I have to do my 10-hour late shift and leave them at midday to homeschool themselves because of lockdown and because there are some truly evil walking demons out there and they are dangerous, cunning and determined. If someone buys you food at a restaurant, order as cheaply as possible even if they tell you order whatever you want. Used to get death glares from parents if I ordered something $10 or over at a place where average prices was $10. If you can get a burger and freeze for $8, you better be eating a burger. I grew up solidly middle class, but I always do this if someone else pay for the meal. I just hate it when people spend too much money on me. It makes me feel guilty. This. Also make sure you only get water to drink. My cousin used to get iced tea every time and we still hear about it like 30 years later. Parents and grandparents complain about it to no end. We always followed the second cheapest thing on the menu rule. If you order the cheapest, they'll notice and comment. Second cheapest is never noticed and you are not being too much of a burden. Leave the two on when you leave the house when someone calls. Your parents are in the shower and you are able to take a message. You are perpetually young. Going to a movie only during matinee showings and you are 12 years old until you reach 16. At a restaurant, you are also 9. Forever going to fast food with any adult. You only order off of the dollar menu. Generous borrowing and burning culture. Everything you own is available to be borrowed by other poor people. My family had an extensive movie collection, especially when we could record movies from cable to Viz tapes, and our neighborhood friends were welcome to borrow what they needed. Games, movies. We swapped and borrowed a lot. Oftentimes, it was only long enough to burn a copy to have for oneself. Genuine question. Why would you leave the TV on when you left the house? Safety measure. I feel seen. I was so excited to turn 13 because I would be a teenager. I can stay up until 9:30. My mother and stepfather took me to lunch and the kids' price for 12 and under was $2 cheaper. Thus, I was celebrating my 12th birthday. I get it. I truly do and did then. The meal out was nice. But the irony was tangible. Don't talk to anyone about it. It is shameful. Me and my sibling weren't allowed to enjoy free breakfast programs for kids living in poverty that our schools hosted because it embarrassed my family. Granted, we grew up not just poor but abused, so that played into it. It was normal for money we got for Christmas, birthdays, and from ages 14 and up jobs to go to our parents for food and rent. Things did get better when we started working, but as the family was doomed to fail due to abuse when we inevitably left at 18 and our parents divorced, it left us with nothing. Working 4 years living at home, and none of us were able to save money or go to post-secondary until years later. If we were upset about contributing, we were deemed selfish and accused of not caring about family. Don't talk to anyone about it. It is shameful, yes. That the big secret no one must know, especially God forbid the relatives, although they knew, acted as if they didn't and did nothing. Almost like being a secret agent in a foreign country. I was the outsider, and I had to try to pass as one of the normal, respectable people. 50 years later, and I'm still secretive. Can't relax and can't trust anyone. It is quite literally a form of pissed. It was normal for money we got for Christmas. Birthdays, I can't remember ever getting a birthday or Christmas present until the eldest left home and bought me something small. Years later, I read Angela's Ashes and thought, yes, and that was my normal. There was, and is, worse going on elsewhere. It's another thing. We had a cat. There were mice. The cat had a litter of kittens. Just before Christmas. They all died, one after the other, I'd assume from the cold. No heating. We took the dead kittens up the road to where the gas board were digging trenches for the new North Sea gas and threw them in with the spoil heap. My parents swore up and down they would pay us kids back for the money they borrowed. I'm still waiting on my $2,800 from 1318. I'm still poor. Do what you need to do before doing what you want to do. And then my mom would order takeout, go to the movies, buy junk, and then cry 3 days later because we don't have enough to pay a bill or bills like rent, water, or electric. I never had proper pants because my legs are so long, and after 2 washes I was wearing high waters. She still does this too, complains to me and my kids when we buy something with whatever little money, like toys or hair dye. Yet she spent the money the insurance company gave her to replace the roof of the house with to go to a supernatural convention. So we get rained on in our house with as many leaks as there is. Yet it is everybody else who needs to save to fix the roof, not her. Holy shit, are we siblings? I don't have enough money this week for the electric. I need you to give me the money that you are saving after giving me nearly all of your check already. And then she goes and buys fucking ferrets with said money. Meanwhile, I'm trying to get new glasses because mine are 4 years out of date and I can't see as well anymore. Keep your aspirations to yourself. Telling anyone in your household social strata about your plans to get out and do better may be met with bitterness and downright ridicule. People will call you uppity for wanting to go to school or stupid for having a career goal that isn't modest and local and vaguely dead-end. People will tell you that you have no common sense simply because you refuse to see the world in terms of pure survival. I've never had a stranger put into words the exact ways I was ridiculed for daring to go to college. I had your same experience, except add in all the ways me going to school and not keeping that good $8.25 retail job, of which they took all the pay for bills, would lead to my parents' and 2 younger brothers' eviction. I was told I was never welcome back if I left, but I had to. I haven't seen or heard from the 4 of them in 15 years. I'm closer to my 12th grade English teacher who made my depressed ass apply for the scholarship that eventually paid for my college. Woo, sorry for the long post. Just brought back memories. This. I can't tell my family about my successes, woo, them feeling inferior hurt, so I don't. It is lonely sometimes. I feel proud of how far I've come, and one day I will make enough to help them out. For now, I just keep it to myself.
Like and subscribe for more Reddit content. Watch the next video at the top of your screen.